The March 2020 first national COVID-19 lockdown affected the education sector, with over 15 million learners sent back home for 2 complete years and exempted from attending physical classes, save for those whose parents could afford online and virtual learning expenses. However, at a given point in time of the lockdown, government attempted to reopen institutions of learning, but in a phased manner, with clusters of students reporting for school, but the condition was to the effect that the set COVID-19 standard operating procedures by Ministry of Health be followed to the letter to counter the spread of the pandemic. This could not work out, and in June 2021, the president announced the second national lockdown. Some learners were in school and were compelled to return home barely 2.5 months in classes. To those in lower primary level of Form 1, 2 and 3 have never been to school since March 2020.
Admittedly, the time they were at school was shorter than the normal term and semesters. As they returned home, the continuity of learning has been implemented through distribution of home study materials, broadcast of lessons through radio and television.
Learners in Senior 1 and 2 had very little time to return to school for physical classes, even if opportunities for brief reopening came. However, since mid-August 2021, medical and health training institutions were opened. From 1st November, all tertiary institutions were allowed to reopen in a phased manner.
Now they have opportunity to study for 2 weeks physically, and that will cover things like the practicals, those who have got laboratory practicals and such things, and also for the lecturers to be able maybe to explain some concepts that students may not have understood during the online.
Vaccination against COVID-19 prioritized teachers, and the Ministry of Education and Sports managed to mobilize teaching staff, non-teaching staff and learners who were aged 18 years and above to go for vaccination. By early December, 70% of teaching staff out of an estimated 550,000 teaching staff had received at least one COVID-19 vaccination jab. The spokesperson, Ministry of Education and Sports, Dr. Mujimba Dennis, emphasizes that the first SOP that heads of institutions must enforce is that staff unvaccinated must not be allowed in the premises of the institution.
For staff in government institutions and receiving a salary from public funds, we cannot allow you to remain away from your job simply because you do not want to be vaccinated, while at the same time you continue to receive a salary. At some point, staff must decide whether they want to keep their job or stay unvaccinated, but not both.
In line with this condition, some schools confirm that most of their staff have been vaccinated and others are already carrying out psychosocial support, counseling teachers to change their mindset.
We are all vaccinated, and I thank all the teachers and the support staff because they all have their certificates.
Some schools, some other businesses, chapati making, brick making, some small businesses. We have encouraged them not to close those businesses, but they are getting some people to be keeping them. They will
so ensure that all our teachers are vaccinated, apart from 2 who have just given birth.
Since July 2021, when the financial year started running, the Line Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development disbursed more than 107 billion shillings in capitation grants to institutions of learning at all levels to purchase basic amenities for observance of SOPs.
For government-aided primary and secondary schools, at least 62 billion shillings of the capitation grants has been earmarked for restoration of these schools by way of minor repairs and facelifting.
The Minister for Education and Sports announced the reopening of basic and secondary education institutions and also released the school calendar for 2022 academic year. She assured the public that to catch up with lost time, there will be remedial lessons.
Senior 2 classes of 2020 shall be progressed to Senior 2 and Senior 3 respectively. Remedial lessons shall be provided. These classes should be provided in these classes during the first term of 2022 so that they can be beneficiaries, especially those who are beneficiaries of home study materials.
However, some of the teachers we spoke to revealed their plans of implementing remedial lessons and how to catch up with lost time.
Public schools, their timetables have always been beginning at 8:30, so it is high time we saved an hour. If your timetable begins at 8:30, you can save the 30 minutes or 45 before and then 45 after. We should conduct remedial lessons.
We shall start with some simple work, preparing them into the difficult work, teaching them from the known to the unknown.
The Ministry of Education and Sports released guidelines for reopening of schools. These guidelines include, among others, effective implementation of the school-based COVID-19 surveillance programs for daily screening of learners and staff for COVID-19 signs and symptoms, recording of screened results, reporting and referral of suspected cases of COVID-19.
We find any temperature which is so high, it's not abnormal. We don't handle such people as an abnormal case. What is important here is the reporting. That's why we have COVID committees.
We have also changed the streams. If a class had one stream, we have made them two streams so that the children can have ample space within the classroom.
However, some private school heads say implementation of these guidelines come with financial implications.
The SOPs for schools are just impossible. If a class used to have 60 students, now you need 4 classrooms to accommodate the same 60 students. So you cannot build those structures now.
Other guidelines include restricting entry of members of the public to schools, no official visiting days, regularly guide and counsel learners against COVID-19 related stigmatization and coping mechanisms, and learning shifts for those with inadequate facilities. I'm Nafka Farida, reporting for UBC News.